Tastes like grapes.
So you're reading a description on a bottle of wine. It says it's a dry wine that's bold, acidic, and tannic, with hints of earthy notes, black fruit notes, red fruit notes, and aging notes. But what does that even mean?
Well, not to worry. Today, we're going to teach you basic wine terms so you can sound like a wine snob. Whether you're at home with friends or out at a restaurant, these terms are bound to impress anyone you're with.
Hi, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Ken, and we're Wine Therapy. Alright, so in today's video, we're going to go over basic wine terms that everyone should know. Just as a forewarning, even with these wine terms, even though they're basic, they can get a little bit confusing. Not to worry though, we broke them down to make them as simple as possible. So even though these are basic wine terms, to make it easier for you to learn, we broke it up into beginner, intermediate, and more advanced terms, just to make it a little bit easier for you to understand.
So let's get into it by describing the basic wine terms for a beginner. So remember, some answers are better than others, but there is no wrong answer here. And also, these wine terms are on a scale from one extreme to the other, and that should help with the easiness of these terms. So first we have light versus bold wine. This is also known as the heaviness of the wine.
Another way to think about light and bold wines is, does it have a really intense flavor to it? If it does, it's probably a bold wine. If it doesn't have as much flavor to it, it's probably a light wine. You can also make an in-between too and say that a wine is medium bold if it's not totally light or totally bold.
So next we have smooth versus tannic wine. And this is also known as the bitterness of the wine.
So think about it. Does the wine go down smooth? If yes, then it's smooth. But if it has a bit of a bitter aftertaste to it, then it's tannic.
Next we have a dry versus sweet wine. And you guessed it, that's the sweetness level of the wine.
So you can think about it. Does your mouth feel like a desert after you drank it? If it does, it's probably a dry wine. Or, if it feels like a candy store inside your mouth, it's a sweet one.
And just as a fun fact, in dry wine, all of the sugar is converted to alcohol, where in sweet wine, there's residual sugar left over, and that's what gives it that sweet flavor. Next, we have soft versus acidic wine, which is that burn you feel going down, or even a tartness.
So like Olivia said, an easy way to tell with most wines whether it's acidic is, does it burn in the back of your throat when it goes down? If it does, it's an acidic wine. If it doesn't, it's soft.
And last, we have light-bodied versus full-bodied. And this is a term that you hear quite often in wine, for even beginners all the way to advanced.
So this can be a more difficult term to explain. What you want to think about is how full the wine tastes. Probably the best example that we could come up with is, think about milk. Skim milk would be really light-bodied, 2% milk, in the middle, medium-bodied, and you can compare whole milk to a full-bodied wine. Again, you're trying to think about how full and rich that flavor is compared to the overall taste of the wine, and you're right on track for it. So the next few bottles of wine you have, start with those terms. Once you get those down, move on to the next section of this video.
But wait, before we move on, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out.
And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you're notified every time we upload a new video.
Now let's get into ways to describe the flavor of the wine or the taste characteristics, which is what we consider the intermediate level.
So again, for this section, remember, there are no totally right and wrong answers, just kind of better and worse ones. So what we're basically trying to teach you in this section is for you to be able to say what a wine tastes like. For example, does a wine taste like strawberries? Does it taste like vanilla? Does it taste like blackberries? Wine can have a variety of different flavors to it. We're just going to give you some examples of the most common categories that wine can taste like.
Speaking of wine, I think you need more. Thank you, sir.
Problem solved.
So first, let's talk about fruit notes. And before we even get into that, there's a couple of terms that are important to know. First, you have your fruity wines, which are your sweet wines. And then you have your savory wines, which are the more tart and bitter wines, but are still considered fruit, like lime and lemon. So to make it easy, we'll break it down into categories according to the fruit notes. So first you have your black fruit notes. That's going to be your blackberry, your plum, and other black fruits. Then you have your red fruit notes. That's going to be your strawberry, cherry, raspberry. Then you have your dried fruit notes, including raisin and prune. And then you have your citrus fruit notes, including orange, which also includes peel and zest, lime, lemon, and grapefruit. Next, you have your tree fruit notes, which are apple, apricot, peach, and pear. And last, you have your floral notes, which are orange blossom, jasmine, perfume, and rose. But there are also others you can add to all of these different types of fruit notes.
So just like Olivia said, this is not an all-inclusive list of fruit notes. What we'd recommend doing is start off with the basic general categories. For example, black fruit notes, red fruit notes, citrus notes within the wine. And then as you get better at it, you can get more specific from there. Another thing to keep in mind too is that with grape wines, they aren't adding these specific fruits to the wine. So they aren't putting oranges, lemons, anything like that into the wine. Just when the grape breaks down and ferments, those flavors come out of the grape flavor. So with typical grape wines, these flavors can be tough to tell and tough to taste within the wine, especially if you're a beginner. An easy way to learn how these different flavors taste within the wine is to try different fruit wines. Again, most of the wine varieties that we talk about on this channel are grape-related varieties like Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, so on. However, a lot of wines are made out of fruits as well. So if you want to know what blackberry tastes like, what cherry tastes like, go for a wine that's made out of blackberries and cherries. That'll also help you when you come back to the grape wines to know exactly what they're supposed to taste like.
So last we have the more advanced terms section. And these terms are a little bit harder to detect within the wine, so we'll go over those. So let's get into it. First we have the oaky notes, which includes vanilla, chocolate, oak, and butter.
The reason these are considered oaky notes is because when a wine is soaked within oak barrels, typically those flavors come out within the wine, such as the vanilla, chocolate, flavors like that.
Then we have the earthy notes, which include leather, minerals, and tar. Then we have the spicy notes, which include pepper, licorice, and your other spices such as clove, cinnamon, and mint. And last we have aging notes, which is where you get that nutty flavor from. And also brown sugar, molasses, and maple syrup.
And again, just to cover the common misconception, ingredients like nuts, peppercorns, licorice are not added within the wine during the fermentation process. These are flavors that come out afterward when you drink and consume the wine yourself. All right, let's stop there. Those terms on their own can get confusing enough as is. So start with those the next few times that you drink wine, and in a few weeks we'll come back and we'll talk about more intermediate and more advanced terms. Also, before we finish, if you're having trouble with picking out those specific terms within wines, take a look A, at the back of the bottle, and B, look it up online too. Those are great ways to kind of quiz yourself and see if you're really tasting what a wine's supposed to taste like.
And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out.
We'll see you in our next video, wine snobs.
Cheers.